Okay, Catherine, we're now live, are we?
I'm just waiting for the picture to confirm. Yes, Councillor Avison, we are now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry for the delay.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, councillors, officers, also members of the public and press viewing the meeting via the live stream on YouTube. This being a remote meeting under the new government legislation. I am Councillor Stan Avison and I'm Chairman of the Licensing Committee, and it is my role to control this meeting. The role of the Licensing Committee is to review any licence of the leisure industry, where appropriate, or taxi and active carriage licences, and also driver's licences. There are 11 councillors on the committee who make the decisions. There is also a number of officers present, making reports and administrating the video conference. We also have our legal advisor with us. So if we could go through the list of members present, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. If you can confirm that you are present, please. Councillor Stan Avison.
Present.
Councillor Billy Brooks.
Present.
Councillor Graham Cullen. There's been an apology. Councillor Campbell Wardman is an apology. Councillor Sarah Devereux.
Present.
Councillor George Horton. I think he's left the meeting unless he's coming back. Councillor Neil Jones.
Present.
Councillor Manjon.
Present.
Councillor Claire Newman. That's an apology. And Councillor Turton Levers is absent. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies and substitutes for any councillors, please?
We have an apology for absence from Councillor David Andrews and Councillor Campbell Wardman, and also Councillor Andrew Leonard. Councillor Horton is substituting for Councillor Leonard, but he's just lost connection at the moment. So,
okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Could I just ask the officers, please, to identify themselves so people, the public, know who you are, please, and what you do. If I could start with you, John, please.
Hey, Councillor, yeah, I'm John Challen. I'm the Service Manager for Safer Communities at East Lindsey District Council and providing support for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Twiddy.
Yes, I'm Aidan, licensing team at East Lindsey District Council, and my position at the authority is Principal Licensing Officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanne.
Joanne Patterson, Democratic Services Officer, and I'll be taking the minutes at today's meeting. Thank you.
Catherine.
Good afternoon. I am Catherine Walton. I'm a Democratic Services Officer and I'll be hosting the meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne Good, please.
Hello, good afternoon all. Anne Good, Senior Democratic Services Officer, here to assist with the administration of the meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, our legal advisor.
Good afternoon, Kim Robertson, the committee's legal advisor for this afternoon.
Thank you very much. If I could just remind you, please, if you've got a mobile phone by you, to switch it off or on silent. To be on mute unless you're speaking. This is important, otherwise the audio becomes less clear. Have your video turned on, and when you want to speak, press the blue hand button on the participant list, and I will call the speakers in turn. If you have to leave the meeting, to let me know before you leave. Otherwise, we won't know if they meant to leave the meeting or if you have left due to a connectivity issue. We'll now go on to item 2 on the agenda, which is disclosure of interest, if any. No interests. Thank you. Item 4 is to confirm the open and exempt minutes of the General Licensing Committee held on the 22nd of June 2020. I propose those minutes are correct. Could I have a seconder, please?
Can I second those, please, Chairman? I did raise my hand, but I'll just jump in anyway. I'd like to second those, please.
Yeah, I need to say yes, that's right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 5, this is the Hackney Carriage and Private Hire Vehicle Driver Licensing Policy, Driving Proficiency. This is Mr. Twiddy, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll go through the report, just do a summary of the report for the benefit of the members and just explain what the recommendation is in the report for members to consider, Chair. So it relates to driving assessments for brand new Hackney Carriage and private hire driver licence applicants by people who want to work in the East Lindsey district as taxi or private hire drivers. The Council's current policy is that it requires all brand new applicants to successfully undergo the driving assessment that's provided by the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. And this authority has required that assessment to be done by brand new applicants for a number of years now. Unfortunately, due to the COVID-19 situations, Chair, the Links Road Safety Partnership have advised us that they're unable to undertake the driving assessments for us. And they don't feel that they're going to be in a position to do that until the UK alert level for COVID-11 moves to number 2 or number 1. So that could be for quite a while where they're not able to undertake those assessments. The licensing team are receiving inquiries from people who want to be taxi and private hire drivers in the East Lindsey district. We receive those on a weekly and a daily basis. So we are having to come to you for a separate provision, some alternative provision to the Links Road Safety Partnership. We've made contact with the Blue Lamp Trust, and they're a charitable organisation that's actually based in Hampshire, but they're doing driver assessments, taxi and private hire driver assessments across the whole of the country. And they've indicated that they're more than willing to bridge the gap, let's say, that the Links Road Safety Partnership can't do at this time. The current policy does allow the committee to make alternative arrangements. It does say that in addition to the Links Road Safety Partnership, this authority would be prepared to look at other providers of driver assessments. In the report, Chair, what we've done on page 21, we've given the members a brief overview of the Blue Lamp Trust. They're a non-profit organisation, just giving an idea what they're all about, and also giving how their assessment works. For the benefit of the members, I better make it clear that it is very different to the Links Road Safety Partnership assessment in a number of ways. The first one being actually the Blue Lamp Trust assessment is cheaper. It is cheaper for drivers. With the Links Road Safety Partnership assessment, though, it would be a full day where you would do a classroom session in the morning and then the driver assessment in the afternoon. The Blue Lamp Trust is a straight driving assessment and it's a straight pass or fail. If you failed it, then unfortunately you have to rebook and do the assessment again. Whereas with the Links Road Safety Partnership, if you fail or look as though you're going to fail, they will give you some pointers, they'll help you with your driving, and then they will take you out a second time during that day and give you another opportunity to prove your ability to drive, act as a vocational driver safely and appropriately. So it is different in those ways. But at the moment, I'm afraid we've got nobody else who's actually prepared to do driver assessments for us. In relation to the Links Road the Blue Lamp Trust, they do e-learning modules for people who are interested in doing their assessment. So there is that opportunity for people to gen up on their driving skills beforehand. The recommendation to the committee chair, if members are minded to go down this route, is to appoint with immediate effect the Blue Lamp Trust to undertake Hackney Carriage and private hire driver proficiency assessments on behalf of this authority, and that appointment to last for an initial period of 12 months, for it then to come back to the committee within the 12-month period. The recommendation is also that if the Links Road Safety Partnership come back on board within that 12-month period, that the Blue Lamp Trust be allowed to continue for their allotted 12-month period. And during that period, people would have the opportunity to go to the Links Road Safety Partnership or the Blue Lamp Trust. The reason for that being that the Blue Lamp Trust have jumped to fill the gap, let's say, jumped to fill the void, and we felt it was perhaps fair to them if the Links Road Safety Partnership came back to give the Blue Lamp Trust the original 12 months that we as officers said we would be recommending to the committee on their behalf. So that's it from me, Chair. I'm more than happy to answer any questions for members, and I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Adrian. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Twiddy? Otherwise, I propose that we do exactly that, that we go with the Blue Lamp Trust for the year, because obviously we need somebody to do it, and they come with a good recommendation. I think that would be sensible. But I've got Sarah, you would like to question.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I was just probably looking for a little bit of reassurance from you, Adrian, because I think what I'm worried about is there is no actual driving sort of like test as part of it with the Blue Lamp. Do you feel that's going to be an issue at all, or you're quite confident that that will still be fine and safe? Thank you.
Oh, actually, sorry, Councillor, I probably didn't explain very well. There is a driving aspect to this. It's a one-to-one session in a car.
Yeah.
But there'll
Right.
be COVID-19 kind of procedures in place to ensure it is everything as it should be. It is a driving assessment.
Right. Thank you.
They
Sorry,
do
my
sit with them
misunderstanding. I was slightly worried
Yeah.
there, but you've reassured me. Thank you.
Yeah. So the difference is.
You're muted, Adrian. And you ask Councillor Sarah, you're both muted.
I was muted because I was waiting for Adrian.
All right. if
Yeah.
on the minutes actually where Mr. Twiddy has given us the overview of Blue Lamp Trust, it does say that the candidate must provide a suitable vehicle.
Yes, I did see those, Stan. It was just when Adrian explained again, I thought, oh, maybe I've misunderstood. So I just wanted some clarification.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you, Adrian.
What I'll say, Chair, is that the big difference is with the Links Road Safety Partnership, there's the classroom session in the morning and then the driving assessment in the afternoon. Yeah. With the Blue Lamp Trust, you go straight into the driving assessment, and that is the big.
On that case, thank you very much, Chairman. I'd be happy to second that proposal.
Councillor David Mannion.
Sorry, did I understand that the minimum involvement with Blue Lamp is 12 months?
You're muted, Adrian.
Sorry, Chair, I think there's a problem with my laptop here. I go to unmute and then it immediately mutes me again. I'm not really sure what's going on. So, yeah, with the Blue Lamp Trust, that's not the minimum period. It was the officer's suggestion of the minimum period being a year. The Blue Lamp Trust obviously were looking for some form of commitment from this authority, because the Blue Lamp Trust have to set up things in our area with driver assessors and things like that. And so we said to them, if we said to the committee a minimum period of 12 months, would that be suitable for you? So that was from officers. The Blue Lamp Trust never actually said a minimum period, Councillor.
So you are proposing that we have a 12-month period involvement with Blue Lamp?
If that's possible, if the members are happy with that, yes.
Does that need to be voted on separately, or is it the same proposal?
I think what I would say is if members wanted and the chair wanted to do it separately, where first of all you consider whether you want to go to the Blue Lamp Trust, and then if after that you want to decide if you do go for the Blue Lamp Trust, how long you want that to be for, that's fine. If that's for you and the chair and the councillors to decide. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just wondered, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if somebody's prepared to step in because somebody else can't do it, I think we've got to give them a reasonable amount of time. Otherwise, they might even say it's not worth doing, actually, at a short notice. So, you know, if we can run them side by side, if Lincolnshire come back, I think the year would be reasonable. But I understand what Councillor Mannion's saying. Did you want a less time, Councillor Mannion?
No, I think 12 months is fine. I don't think we're going to get out of this mess before 12 months. So 12 months is fine. It's just a question of stipulating it somewhere in the voting arrangement. Whereas,
Okay. Councillor Brooks, you would like to have a word?
Yeah, one thing that Adrian mentioned that I think would be quite interesting just to hear a little bit more about is the e-learning modules there, because obviously with the Links Road partnership, there's a classroom session in the morning. I was just wondering if like we could make it so they have to do, I don't know, an e-learning bit, or just a bit more information about that would be good, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So the e-learning module is there, set up by the Blue Lamp Trust. It's on their website. As far as I understand, there is no way of somebody logging in to say that they've done it. I think why it's there is some people may be a bit nervous about doing the assessment. They've probably not done any form of driving assessment since their original driving test, whenever that was. And it just gives them some pointers, some things to think about when they actually go through the assessment, and gives them some idea of good vocational driving practices. I can go back to the Blue Lamp Trust, but my understanding is they're there for anybody to look at, and I don't think there's a way you could register to say that you'd actually done them.
Councillor Avison, I'm sorry to disturb. Councillor Mannion seems to have dropped out.
Oh, right. Okay. I'll just give him a second, see if he comes back in.
Thank you.
Is that him coming back, is it?
Councillor Mannion's now back in.
Oh, lovely. Okay. Thank you. All right, now, Councillor Mannion, you're back in, are we?
Yes, we are.
Can you hear me, Councillor Mannion?
yes, I'm sorry. The connection knocked me off. I'm sorry.
All right. Did you want me to take a vote on that, whether we go for a year or less?
It's up to you. My personal view, it would be.
I would prefer to leave it for a year, and let's take a vote on then taking it over for the year, because I think, you know, to go less is when they're stepping in where somebody else can't do it. I think they're doing us a favour, really.
No, I quite agree. 12. I quite agree. 12 months is a good minimum period.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Well, I will propose actually that we have the Blue Lamp Trust for 1 year. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second it.
Thank you. We have all those in favour. Joe, please, if you could run through the list, please.
Chairman, sorry, can I just double check? Are you moving the 2 recommendations on page 16 of the report? That includes the 12-month period as well.
Yes, the 12-month period, yes.
And
That's correct. Sorry.
And is
Yes,
that-
that's correct.
That's seconded.
Yes, I would second
Yeah, that's
I would
second.
second
Thank
the
you.
recommendation.
Okay, so Councillor Avison, 4 against or abstain.
Yeah, 4.
Councillor Billy Brooks,
4.
Councillor Devereux,
4.
Councillor Neil Jones,
4.
and Councillor David Manjon.
4.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That one's carried then. So if we can move on to item 6. That's the animal welfare licensing policy. And again, that's Mr. Twiddy, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm definitely unmuted, and I'll make sure that I move the cursor away from that mute button. So this refers to an animal welfare licensing policy. So, Chair, there is no legal requirement for the authority to have a specific animal welfare licensing policy because, as mentioned in the report, there's the legislation that covers this area of licensing, and also there's the DEFRA statutory guidance, which guides the way that authorities are to deal with these types of applications for dog breeders, pet shops, riding establishments, beach donkey operations and other similar operations. But earlier on in this year, members did consider an animal welfare policy and decided it was probably a good idea to have one. The purpose of the policy being to cover areas that are not really covered by the DEFRA guidance, or clarify the way that this authority is going to look at certain types of applications, process them, and also it sets out for licence applicants clarification of some of the areas that they may be confused with within the licensing process. So the policy document was looked at by the committee earlier on this year, Chair, and was then issued for consultation, and the closing date for consultation replies has now passed. You do have 3 consultation responses to the policy document, and I've set those, or officers have set those out for you starting on page 29 of the report pack that you have. Now, what I would say to you is it's probably fair to say that the 3 people that have replied to the consultation document, they're all dog breeders, they're all people running dog breeding businesses, and I think my understanding of it is they're not particularly happy with the star rating scheme, where animal welfare businesses that hold a license are star rated from 1 to 5. Star rating 1 being a business that has minor failings, all the way up to star rating 5, which covers businesses that are viewed as going that extra mile, that have achieved an exceptional level of business operation, let's say. I can't really do anything about that for them. If they're not happy with the star rating scheme, that's set by central government, that's set by the Secretary of State for DEFRA. And as an authority, we have to follow that. We're duty bound and legally obliged to follow it. Now, I think also I would say that in my experience of dealing with some of the dog breeders businesses that have been breeding dogs for a considerable number of years, 10, 20, 30 years in some instances, there is some frustration on their part in relation to this new licensing regime, which is more stringent than it was previously and requires them to undertake a lot of operating procedures, have a lot of documentation in place, which the previous regime didn't. But that's just my summary of it. In relation to the consultation responses, we have given you the officer response where we think it's appropriate to do so. But at the moment, as officers, we're not minded. We don't feel that there's anything in those consultation responses that would warrant amending the policy document if members are minded to adopt the policy document. So the policy document has not been amended, the proposed or draft policy document's not been amended, Chair, based on the consultation responses. It is as it was before, and there's a recommendation from officers, if members are minded to go with that, that the policy document be adopted with immediate effect to come into force. Quite happy, Chair, to answer questions on the policy document. Members have seen that at the previous meeting, and quite happy to address any concerns or answer any questions in relation to the consultation responses, Chair. So back to yourself on this one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Twiddy. Have we got any questions from Mr. Twiddy on the consultation or? Yes, Councillor Devereux.
Sorry, it's me again. I was just interested to see how many we actually sent out. I know we've had 3 responses, but out of how many that were sent out, please, Adrian?
Sorry, I haven't got the exact number, Chair. Sorry, Chair and Councillor, but we've got over 120 animal welfare licensed premises. So yeah, in excess of 120 went out. Everybody who's licensed with us got a copy of the document, both the consultation document and the proposed policy. And then it was placed on the East Lindsey consultation webpage on the website. And I think also there was something put on the East Lindsey social media, the Facebook page, pinpointing it to people as well. So over 120 people that are licensed received a copy.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Sorry, I was just trying to unmute. Well, I think it's a very well constructed document, and I congratulate Mr. Twiddy on it. I think the objections are purely sour grapes of some of these long-term breeders. So I would propose that we accept the recommendation and approve it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would certainly second that, because I think that's I think it's a really well written document as we agreed at the first time we saw it. So I would recommend it goes through as we did in the first place with no changes. So we'll take a vote on that then, please. If you could run through those, Joe, please.
Yeah, sorry, it's Adrian. I think you've got Councillor Mannion wanting to have a question.
Oh, yes, he's come up there. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay,
Councillor Mannion.
That's okay. Fine. Just some point of clarification, please. 15.9 on page 49 and 15.10. 15.9 says there's no right to appeal. 15.10 says the license holder may appeal to a first-tier tribunal.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. So 15.9 relates to right of appeal in relation to a suspension. 15.10 relates to a right of appeal to the variation or revocation of a licence. So if a licence in 15.9 was suspended, if it was then subsequently revoked, then they would have a right of appeal against the revocation. That's when their right of appeal would start.
Okay. And I'm just a bit worried about 16.1, which is the right of inheritance, really. How do you know that the person taking over is a fit and suitable person?
Right, so at some point the new person's going to have to apply for a new licence. They just can't take over that new licence, the existing licence, for the length of its term. At some point they will need to apply for a new licence, and at that point is when the fit and proper status starts, or the identification of the fit and proper status. So the way that it works is, of course, if somebody dies, all parties don't want that business to immediately fold because that person's died. So the legislation allows somebody to step into the fold and take over that licence. But if they then want to take over the responsibility with a licence for running that business for a long time, then at that point they will need to apply for a licence, and that's where the fit and proper aspect comes in. Is that okay?
Fine, thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
that, Adrian. Yeah, sorry about that. Yes. Yes, I've asked you, Joe, to run through. We'll take a vote on that now. We've had the proposal and seconder, so that's fine.
Okay, so on the recommendations, Councillor Avison, for, against or abstaining?
Sorry, Joe, could you repeat that?
So on the recommendations, if you could confirm if you're for, against or abstaining?
Okay, thank you. So we can move on.
Say 4, please.
Sorry, Councillor Avison, I don't think we've gone through the voting yet. Could you confirm if
when you're
you're
ready.
for? I think we're losing connection somehow. I'm not sure. Councillor Avison, are you able to hear me?
Yes, okay, love, yeah, I'm back on now. It's come back
Oh,
up,
right,
yeah.
sorry, I thought
Yeah.
we lost you for a minute. Yeah, I just wanted to check, are you for the recommendations?
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Brooks,
For.
Councillor Devereux,
For.
Councillor Jones,
4.
and Councillor Manjon.
4.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we're up and we're okay again now, Joe. Thank you.
Okay.
Move on to item 7 now, then on the agenda, which is statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards. This is Mr. Twiddy again, please. And that's
Thank you, Chair. So that's in the supplementary pack that came out to members after the main pack. And I'll go through that for members now, Chair. So this relates to the Department of Transport's minimum licensing standards for taxis and private hire vehicles. The Department of Transport, under new government legislation, has gained the power to set minimum standards for licensing authorities. And the licensing authorities, the councils, are legally obliged to follow that and only deviate from it if there's good and valid reasons for doing so. Now, this new minimum standard was introduced under the Policing and Crime Act of 2017. And in the report pack that we've given you, we've given you a copy of the new minimum standards. They don't cover everything in relation to taxi and private hire licensing, but one of the things they do cover is relevance of convictions in relation to drivers and operators, operator license conditions and things like that. One of the things that this authority will have to do is look at the minimum standards, address any areas of its current policy that need addressing as a result of the introduction of the minimum standards, and then in about 6 months' time be ready to report back to the Department of Transport about what we as an authority have done to achieve those minimum standards and any changes that we've made in relation to licensing policy and procedures. So one of the things that you do need to do is look at your minimum standards for convictions, and the minimum standards have meant that this authority has had to look at its minimum standards for drivers and operators, Chair. And I think probably the best thing is if I direct members to the report pack, starting on page 9. So the written report to the committee by officers says that what officers have done is the amendments that we think are needed or required as a result of the minimum standards are shown in red typeface on the document that you have before you, starting on page 9. So starting on page 9, that's this authority's current guidelines in relation to convictions. And then there's the suggested amendments in red typeface, Chair. But I must admit, I did this document on 2 separate computers. And whilst my amendment started in red, it was a bit of a surprise to me that actually when I used the second computer, my amendment started going in blue typeface. And I hadn't realised that until I sent the report through committee admin to yourselves, Chair. So actually the amendments are shown in both blue and red typeface. Those are the suggested amendments to the committee. In the view of officers, that will bring the current guidelines to the new minimum standard. And that's one of the first things that you, in effect, you will have ticked off the list of things that you would need to do in relation to this new minimum standard. Now, normally what you would do if you're minded to make this amendment is, before you did it, is actually to consult with the licensed trade and other interested parties about such a radical change in policy. But as your principal licensing officer, the difficulty I see with that is these are new minimum standards. You are legally obliged to achieve them and should only deviate from them if there's good and valid reasons to do so. And I'm struggling to see what good and valid reasons they would be to deviate from minimum conviction standards. And I think your legal advisor will probably come in once I've had my little speech here, let's say. At the moment, I'm not minded that you need to do any consultation if members want to adopt this minimum standard. My view is that you can do that because it's a minimum standard, but I'm sure your legal advisor will come in once I've finished here. Also, the the guidelines relate to minimum standards and policy requirements for private hire operators. Those are the people who take the bookings for the private hire vehicles. You've got a lot of private hire operator licenses that are due for renewal between now and the end of the year. And so I'm going to suggest to you at least a third of your operator licenses are due for renewal at the end of the year, by the end of the year. So that was something else as officers we felt perhaps you needed to address quite quickly in relation to this new minimum standard. And in the report pack that you have, starting on page 31, there's the recommendation from officers to members in relation to the suggested changes to the private hire operator licensing policy, the existing policy, to bring it in line with the new minimum standards, Chair. So there's that to consider as well. There are other things in the minimum standard which this committee will need to look at, and the proposal from officers is that we come back to you in October, the next meeting of the committee, with an in-depth run through the minimum standard and addressing the other issues within the minimum standard that need to be looked at and considered. But for the moment, it was felt that the guidelines needed to change for convictions quite quickly, and also due to the number of private hire operator licenses that were up for renewal, that needed changing quickly as well, Chair. I don't intend, unless members want me to go through each change that's in there. Members have had it in advance. There's been an opportunity to read that, Chair. But as with the previous reports, I'm more than happy to answer any questions or go into any other depth that members might want in relation to specific parts of the policy and the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Twitty. Kim, is there anything you would like to say before we go to councillors, please?
Chairman, it's just to echo Adrian's comments about the consultation, actually. I do tend to agree with him that with this introducing a legal minimum standard, the chances of you changing anything from a consultation or adding anything, and I know that the phrase is compelling local reason not to do so, I can't see that happening, but it's something that even if somebody commented that they didn't like those minimum standards, unless there is that compelling reason, I can't see that you would be able to not introduce them. So potentially no consultation, Chairman, and just noting that the Department of Transport in the report do actually already state they have consulted, albeit nationwide, they have consulted. So they will have a level of comments and opinions in there. So, Chairman, yeah, it's just to confirm what Adrian has said. I don't believe a consultation is necessary, and maybe the way to address it is if on an individual basis people don't meet that criteria, they could give you an individual reason. But again, it would have to be something quite significant and compelling for you to go against your policy, and indeed that of the Department of Transport.
Thank you for that, Kim. Thank you. Has any councillor got any questions for Mr. Twiddy? No. In that case, I would propose that we accept the recommendations and that we approve those with immediate effect. Do I have a seconder for those minutes, please?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. Could I ask you, Joe, please, to run through for all those in favour, please?
Yeah, so the recommendations, Councillor Avison,
4,
Councillor Billy Brooks,
4,
Councillor Devereux,
4,
Councillor Jones,
4,
Councillor Manjon.
4,
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you very much. That concludes this meeting, actually. And the date of the next programme meeting will be on the 19th of October. So I will
It's
now.
all right. Sorry, Councillor Avison, is it all right to stop the live streaming?
Well, we've got the 2003 committee meeting next.
Oh, right, sorry.
So if we could go move on to the Licensing Act 2003 committee for the 7th of September. The register of attendance. Could go through those. Please, Joe.
If you can just confirm that you are present, Councillor Stan Avison,
Yes, present.
Councillor Billy Brooks,
present.
Councillor Sarah Devereux,
present.
Councillor Neil Jones,
present.
Councillor David Manjon.
present.
Thank you.
And apologies for those this meeting, please.
So the apologies for absence are Councillor David Andrews, Councillor Campbell Wardman and Councillor Andrew Leonard.
Thank you. There are no disclosure of interest. To just then on this one, it's to confirm the minutes of the Licensing Act 2003 committee meeting held on the 2nd of March and the 22nd of June 2020. I'll propose those as the correct minutes. Do I have a seconder, please?
Councillor Devereux has indicated to speak, Councillor Avison.
Thank you. Yeah, she's moved. Yes, okay, thanks very much. And also, all those in favour, could you please show? Lovely. Okay, thanks very much. That one's carried. And to confirm the minutes of the Licensing Act 2003 subcommittee meeting held on the 22nd of June, open exempt minutes, the 6th of July, open, and the 7th of July, open and exempt minutes. I propose those as a correct record. And it will. Can I have a seconder for those, please?
Yes, I'll second those, Chairman.
Thank you. That's all I need to know is because no one else was there, so that's fine. Thank you for those. Item 4 on the agenda is the Licensing Act 2000 review of the licensing policy. And that's to receive a report from the service manager. Mr. Twitty, if you could do that, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I'll run through this report for the members and give a summary of why the report's come in before the committee today, Chair. So Licensing Act 2003 deals with licensing in relation to alcohol, late night refreshment and regulated entertainment, live music venues and cinemas and similar type venues. Under law, under the Licensing Act 2003, this authority must have a licensing policy in relation to this specific area of licensing, and it must keep that licensing policy under review. There is a timescale within which the policy must be reviewed, but the review period also allows the authority to do interim reviews if they're actually required, and this is one of those. It's an interim review of the policy document based on experience of dealing with licensing hearings over the last couple of years, and sometimes changes in legislation as well, which has warranted a change in the policy, Chair. So some of these proposed reviews that we've been stacking up until we've actually got a suitable time to bring them to the committee as a whole. And I think possibly the best thing to do is for me to say, if members want to, Chair, to turn to page 41 of the report pack, and that sets out the proposed amendments to the licensing policy document in relation to the Licensing Act 2003. It's quite an in-depth policy, so we haven't photocopied it and put it with the report pack, but in the report pack, we've given a link to where it is on the local authority website. And the members, when they're doing Licensing Act 2003 subcommittee meetings in relation to premises licence reviews and premises licence applications, they'll be used to officers cutting and pasting from this policy document into those reports for consideration. So starting on page 41, one of the things that this authority has to do, it must consider the need to protect children and vulnerable adults from sexual exploitation, and it must consider that in all its licensing functions. That's part and parcel of law. It doesn't have to be in the licensing policy to make that happen. By law, it has to happen. But actually, there's very little with reference to that and safeguarding issues in the current Licensing Act policy document that this authority has adopted. So the proposal in the report is to adopt those quite extensive paragraphs that start on page 41 that are in italics typeface, Chair, and they go on to page 42 on the other side. Actually, those have been used by this authority when officers have written reports for the committee that have involved safeguarding issues at licensed premises. Then that is pretty much standard what's in this policy document or proposed policy document, what officers have said to members in reports to the committee. Also, since the last policy review, this authority has gained the power, like all licensing authorities, to review existing personal licenses, and that there was no reference in the current policy to that. So at the bottom of page 42, very quick 3 lines that set out, hopefully, this authority's position in relation to the review of personal licenses. Basically, it says that allowing somebody to continue to be a personal license holder when they've incurred a serious criminal conviction may undermine the promotion of crime and disorder licensing objective. That in effect says, if you're an existing personal license holder, you pick up a serious conviction, then it's highly likely that this authority will seriously consider the status of your personal license. Next, we move on to page 43, which is in relation to late night refreshment at community premises, village halls and schools. A few years ago, the committee considered this and felt it was a good and appropriate thing to exempt those premises, such as community premises, village halls and schools, from the need to hold a late night refreshment licence. You have the power to make that exemption under the legislation. The committee decided it was a good step, but there was not an opportune moment to move forward with that, because you have to consult and it's full council that in effect would make that exemption rather than the licensing committee chair. So the proposed policy change gives an indication that's the exemption this authority is looking at, and indicates that it feels that by giving that exemption to those premises, those limited premises from licensing, is unlikely to affect the licensing objectives and not pose a problem to the public. In the licensing policy, we also make reference to the council's corporate strategy, and there is a new corporate strategy that came into force in 2020. So that will need reflecting in the licensing policy document as well, Chair. But the major changes that are proposed for members to consider is the exemption for late night refreshment, the community premises, village halls and schools, the review of personal licences position, and also to insert into the policy document an area relating to safeguarding, particularly safeguarding in children and vulnerable adults. The important thing for members to remember on this one, Chair, is the Licensing Act policy has to be adopted by full council. It's not something that can be adopted by the Licensing Committee. It's one of those anomalies, a bit like the Gambling Act policy has to be adopted by full council. The way it's normally worked at this authority is that the Licensing Committee would consider any amendments or changes, pass those out for consultation to the public and interested parties, consider those consultations, and then if the committee is minded to, then move forward with a recommendation for full council to a change to the actual policy. So this is that precursor. Do members want to do a consultation and then await the result of that consultation and then consider later this year if they want to move forward with a recommendation to full council, Chair? So that's it from me at the moment. I'll pass back to yourself.
Thank you, Adrian. Has any of the councillors got any questions I'd like to ask Mr. Twiddy, or any comments I'd like to make? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I really would just want to ask Mr. Twiddy, really. It says protect children and vulnerable persons from sexual exploitation. Should we also be thinking about any exploitation rather than just sexual exploitation? You know, with this recent slavery thing and all the rest of it, shouldn't that also be included in the policy?
I think the reason for coming today was specifically to safeguarding, because of the legal requirement for this authority to consider it in all its functions. But yeah, Councillor, it is something that we could look at in relation to modern slavery and pinpointing or signposting licence holders and applicants the things to look out for and the things that they perhaps need to address in their operating schedules if there's any concerns in relation to that. I'm afraid I haven't got anything drafted, but if you wanted us to go away, if members wanted us to go away and redraft something and come back to you in October, more than happy to do that, but that would perhaps delay this till October. But perhaps there's no rush to get this done if you want us to come back in October.
My view is that you could include it, and I think we'd be happy to accept it in October, but obviously that's up to the chairman.
Or has anybody else got anything they would like to say or any comment they'd like to make?
I raised my hand. Can I talk?
Yes, Councillor Mannion.
Yeah. So in relation to the community premises, taking away the need for licensing, I mean, does that leave us open? Does that, I mean, these premises could potentially cause a lot of nuisance to the surrounding neighbourhood if there was activity going on after 11 p.m, which is what I understand this, unless I've misunderstood it completely.
Thank you, Chair. If it's okay, I'll come back there.
Yes, thank you.
So
Yes,
this would mean if the council adopted this exemption, it would only relate to late night refreshment, which is the sale of hot food or drink after 11 o'clock at night and before 5 o'clock in the morning. If a village hall or a community premises wanted to sell alcohol after 11, they would still need the licence. If they wanted to have live music after 11 o'clock at night, they would still need a premises licence. It would just take the requirement away for them to have late night refreshment on their premises licence. I think it would be fair to say that a lot of village halls and community premises forgot to ask for late night refreshment on their premises licences when they applied for them, when there was the great rush for licences in 2004. And legally, they can't provide it because it's not actually on their licence. They would need to apply for a variation of their licence to get it added on. This would enable them to undertake late night refreshment, hot food and hot drink after 11 without the need to make a variation of their licence. My experience is that village halls don't cause a great deal of problems in the district. There has been instances where they have, but on the whole, compared with commercial premises, they've not really caused a great deal of difficulty in the district in the 15 years that the Licensing Act has been in place. Thank you, Chair.
thank you, Mr. Twitty.
Thank you.
It's not usually actually the hot food and drink that, you know, afterwards. It's usually the loud music and whatever that causes the problems after that sort of time. But if we get complaints, they can be reviewed anyway. So yeah, we can deal with that. I mean, I think that's reasonable. We thought it was at the time, so we can leave that one in. Are there any more comments, please? So, Councillor Jones, did you want that adding in? Did you want it to go back to October, or?
I would like it adding in, and I think it's important that we do think about it, because obviously we do get quite a few immigrants, etc., into the area. I think we've got a duty to protect vulnerable people as well as just from sexual abuse. So I would like it included, but I don't think it needs delay from Mr. Twiddy getting on with it, really. It's up to you.
Could you add that in, Mr. Twiddy, without delaying it, or?
I mean, if members are happy to sorry, Chair, let me get clear in my own mind what I'm saying. If members are happy for officers to draft something in relation to modern slavery and perhaps run it past you, the legal advisor, and the vice chair to the committee before we send the consultation out, if members are happy for us to do it that way, I would be happy. Or whether members want us to draft something and then bring it back in October, that would be fine as well. I think as officers, what we want to avoid is doing two consultations. I think we would want to do one consultation. So if that meant waiting till October, that would be fine. But if the members are minded to let us draft something, run it past yourself and the vice chair and the legal advisor, we would be happy to do it that way as well.
I'm happy with that.
I think that would be a better way round rather than delay it. Has any councillors got any? Mr. Challen, you would like to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Just to add to Mr. Twitty's comments as well, that we'd be more than happy to work with the council safeguarding officer as well to make sure it's all in keeping with the current safeguarding policy, so that the two of them knit together rather than working in conflict with each other. But we can pick that up as part of that drafting. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you. Has any other councillors got any comments they'd like to make? Otherwise, I'd like to propose that that we ask Mr. Twiddy to write that in and then just run it past myself, the vice chairman, and Kim, if that's okay.
I'd like to second that proposal, Chairman.
Thank you. All those
Chair,
in-
it's Mr. Twiddy. I think you've just got Councillor Mannion with his hand raised.
Yes, okay, yes, I've got him on the bottom. Yes, Councillor Mannion.
Sorry, I left it up by mistake. It's a legacy hand, sorry. I'll lower it down. Thank you.
That's okay. So it's all gone now. Yeah, that's fine. So are we all happy with that being like that? Okay. Got no objections? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. That's that one's carried. So if you could go ahead and do that then, please, Mr. Twiddy, I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And that draws this committee to a close. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attendance, everyone, this afternoon and your participation. Have a nice week.
Thank you.
Keep yourselves safe.